We now start a discussion on an issue making headlines. In recent weeks, North Korea has issued some strong rhetoric against South Korea and the United States, condemning their joint military drills, threatening to scrap its pact with Seoul on easing military tensions. And we just heard just over an hour ago that there were orders to cut off all lines of communication between the two Koreas. The North's recent antics and very acerbic words are causing many to wonder if the regime is trying to pick a fight, and just what's been going on since Kim Jong-un showed up on state media after 20 days of disappearance. Joining us on our discussion today, Dr. Mark P. Barry, Associate Editor of the International Journal on World Peace, who has been following North Korea issues for 3 decades, and Kim Jeong-min, a correspondent for NK News based in Seoul. Now, let's start with you, Jeong-min. We heard about 2 hours ago that Kim Yo-jong, who's assumed to be the second in command in the regime after her brother Kim Jong-un, gave orders to close all hotlines between the two Koreas. Just what's been going on?
In late May, some defector groups flew anti-regime leaflets to the north across the border, which was not unusual. But then Kim Yo-jong, who has been issuing statements under her own byline since March, issued a statement saying, warning Seoul against these anti-regime leaflets and that South Korea has to do more to stop them. United Front Department, which is in charge of South Korea affairs in North Korea, after Kim Yo-jong's statement and echoing Kim Yo-jong's statement content and the importance of her words, that they will be withdrawing from the Inter-Korean Liaison Office, which was already closed due to COVID-19. And then afterwards, during the weekend, 노동신문, which is for domestic consumption in North Korea, followed up with rallies and high-level officials' commentaries on Kim Yo-jong's statement on Thursday, expressing support of the North Korean leadership's decision on Seoul. And then on Monday, which was yesterday, in the morning, North Korea didn't pick up the phone, which was always answered so far until before yesterday. The office inaugurated in 2018. They did answer the phone in the afternoon, which created some confusion to people. But this morning, KCNA, Korean Central News Agency, and 노동신문 announced that they will be cutting off all means of communications between South and the North.
In fact, the statement refers to South Korea as the enemy. Dr. Barry, does North Korea's recent antics and its constant stream of rhetoric indicate that it's really building up a case for further provocations?
Well, they go through certain gyrations, and those gyrations have to work themselves out. There's little anybody can do. They oftentimes have more to do with coalescing domestic support for a new line. And there are much larger issues that North Korea has to deal with in the weeks and months ahead. There are very large geostrategic issues. There's, I think, a sea change of events that's going to be hitting the region, and North Korea has to begin to position itself. But their way of going about explaining what they want is usually to threaten, to do various antics, but also they do have some clear basis to take umbrage. And I think one of them is the fact that there was all of this speculation about Kim Jong-un's health. And it seems the core of that were dissatisfied folks not happy with the results of the April 15th elections in South Korea. And North Korea is kind of taking it out on that crowd. And similarly with the balloons, I think it's the same story. The people doing the balloons, they're doing it more for domestic political purposes, and the North has every reason to be suspicious of the balloons because they don't know what's really in them, especially in today's caustic environment. So they usually have a kernel of a reason for resentment, but there are both internal and ways that they manage larger situations which are very distasteful to the outside world, but that's how they work.
So really you're saying that this may seem rather out of the blue for us, cutting off all communications and referring to the South as the enemy, but it's really a part of their, well, long-term game, what they've been doing all
Yes,
this time, all along.
In New York parlance, we call it, it's their shtick. It's their entertainment routine. So we have to get used to it, and we have to peel the layers off, and we have to see what's really going on. And actually, I think they're very disturbed about what they see in their region, and they're very disturbed about what's going to happen with the United States, I would say even regardless of who becomes president.
Well, Jeong-min, Kim Yo-jong verbally attacked South Korea for allowing defectors to disperse these anti-North Korea leaflets across the border, after which South Korea did take action to clamp down on such activities. What does this tell us about Kim Yo-jong's position in the regime? Do you think she's solidifying her status as the regime's number two?
Kim Yo-jong has a history of dealing with inter-Korean issues. So first of all, it makes sense internally that Kim Yo-jong handles South Korea affairs. But it seems that recently her profile is going up. Her prominence is rising in Rodong Sinmun, for example. Until now, it was a mystery which department she is affiliated with. Some said that it may be organization and guidance department. Some said that she's still propaganda and agitation department. But the recent statements show that maybe she is under the United Front Department, which is in charge of South Korea affairs. Other experts also raise a possibility that she is wearing multiple hats, maybe another department, but still taking care of South Korea affairs, as UFD statement recently said. What's notable is that after Kim Yo-jong issued statement under her own byline, very high-level official in North Korea, such as the Minister of Railways and the Vice Premier of the Cabinet, they follow up with commentaries readily available for domestic public via Rodong Sinmun. Some experts note that it's very unusual that high-level officials respond to some first vice department director like that, which means that her prominence is rising despite what her affiliation and position actually is. And also, I think it seems that North Korea is giving Kim Yo-jong more space to create her own voice in the international arena and to Seoul as well.
We definitely are hearing a lot from her these days. And Dr. Barry,
a lot of voice.
North Korea also criticized the United States last week, taking China's side in this ongoing dispute between the G2 powers. Do you see any underlying intentions there? How do you think the North will use this US-China conflict to its advantage?
Well, the grandfather, Kim Il-sung, was always masterful at being able to work his way between China and the Soviet Union, balance one against the other. But Russia today is just a shadow of the power of what the Soviet Union once was. So my concern is that we're going to find a situation where North Korea has to use China for outward protection, but externally, it actually sees itself as being very, very vulnerable and unable to really move forward in an environment where China is increasing its assertiveness and where the United States is certainly giving the appearance of slowly withdrawing from really both from East Asia and from Europe. So I think they see the writing on the wall, and they're trying to make very serious adjustments in a very rough geopolitical environment.
Well, whatever its position is on foreign affairs or inter-Korean relations, it wasn't really made clear in the politburo meeting that was held over the weekend, which Jeong-min, as you know, was presided over by Kim Jong-un. What was the focus of this meeting, and is there anything that stood out to you?
The focus of the meeting was domestic economy, for sure. There were 4 agendas, and the first 2 both dealt with economy. The first dealt with boosting the country's chemical industry, especially C1. And the second agenda dealt with the construction projects of apartments in Pyongyang. To me, the first one we already saw from early May when Kim Jong-un visited the Suncheon fertilizer factory and choosing that as his grand return stage. We already knew that North Korea was focusing on chemical industry, but the second one, the apartments in Pyongyang, it stood out to me because it seems that North Korea is maybe dealing with economic problems because of multiple causes, perhaps sanctions or COVID-19 or famine or whatever it is. They are dealing with the economic situation in there, and it seems that they are trying to soothe the domestic public, especially dealing with apartments in Pyongyang, which is the area that the elites live in.
Right, so it's always hard to see into the regime with the limited information we have, but in like this case, we see small hints of what may be occurring in that very reclusive regime. Dr. Barry, the North State media report on the Politburo meeting did mostly focus on domestic issues, as Jeong-min just said. Do you think there's a reason that they focused on those and rather avoided the topic of inter-Korean relations?
Well, that's only what they reported that they discussed, but we don't know what they really discussed. And we also don't know what they were discussing in the hallways. We don't know what was said that is not officially to be promulgated to the outside world. So again, I don't read too much into that. It's just a small slice, but we just have to see where things progress in the days and weeks ahead.
And just before we go, Jeong-min, it is incredibly difficult to tell just what's going on inside the regime, but do you think it's really biding its time, or rather buying time, for a larger provocation, or do you think there are internal problems going on at the moment that it's dealing with?
You know, it's always possible it's both. It seems that North Korea is using the occasion to kill two birds with one stone. First of all, in South Korea, the ruling Minju Party won like a smashing victory in the general election, and also U.S. is not responding right now, so it may be a good opportunity for North Korea to put on some pressure for the countries outside. And also internally right now, although they have been talking about 5-year strategy plans, etc., there's not much for North Korea to boast about to the domestic public. So whenever these situations occur in these countries, usually the external enemies help for these countries to get the public together and shout out one slogan, I guess. So this is they're just using the occasion to deal with both issues from my perspective.
Well, we're going to have to see how Seoul and Washington respond to these developments, but we're going to have to wrap up the discussion here. It's been great to hear your insights, Dr. Mark P. Barry, Associate Editor of International Journal on World Peace, and Kim Jeong-min, a correspondent for NK News based here in Seoul. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you very much.
This is also where we wrap up the discussion. Thank you very much for watching.